Hey everyone, thank you so much for being here. This project means a lot to me, and I'm truly grateful for the chance to share it with you. Today's video is something I've been excited to put together for a long time, a real conversation about how players grow, how high-level PvP actually works, and what mentorship really looks like in Destiny 2. And I'm incredibly honored to be joined by Cammycakes, whose deep understanding of the game, calm approach, and clarity of explanation have helped shape PvP community for years. I've been working on a mentorship program inside the Action Is Eloquence community, and more importantly, I've been building it alongside so many other amazing mentors who care just as much about helping others improve. We're creating something special, a space where players can grow with structure, purpose, and real support. So I want to give a few thanks. To the friends featured in the background gameplay, I'm proud to highlight your skill. To everyone who gave feedback or helped shape this project, you're part of this too. And to my wife who edited this video, your support behind the scenes means the world to me. Whether you're here to compete, to grow, or just to understand PvP on a deeper level, I hope this gives you something real to take away. Let's get into it. What's up everyone, I'm SighDUX, a competitive Destiny 2 player with a deep passion for helping others grow in this space. I have aspirations of becoming a full-time esports coach someday, and I help run the mentorship initiative within the Action Is Eloquence Discord. We're building a space where players at all levels can develop through structure, support, and purpose, whether that's through a VOD review, a live review, individual coaching, a get better at 3 session, or truly a clear path of progression. I truly believe that improvement is a teachable process, and I'm here to prove it, not just with my own journey, but by learning from some of the best. Today I have the absolute honor of sitting down with someone who needs no introduction for longtime Destiny PvP players.
Hey friends, I guess I'm going to go with my YouTube intro here. I'll tell you about that in a second, but as far as me as a player, I hit my 10,000 hours, which a lot of people say that means mastery, and I've pretty much tried every combination of everything in the game at some level, and so you get to take away from experiences with different things and put it all together in what I am now. So I say hey friends because at some point I had friends who wanted to get into endgame, and I would make detailed videos to help them accelerate their learning. And I just repeated that until it eventually caught on to the algorithm. So that's where I am today.
Cammycakes is a high-level competitor, a content creator who breaks down mechanics with unmatched clarity, and someone who consistently pushed the boundaries of what's possible in Crucible, all while keeping his signature calm attitude and deep insight. Whether you're grinding solo queue or looking to master the game at a higher level, there's a lot to take away from this conversation, so let's get into it. Solo queue versus team play, how builds change at the top. Let's start with builds, Cammy. How do you personally approach building for solo queue versus team play?
We're going to rapid fire these. We're on a schedule. Easy answer, don't expect anything from teammates. When you are watching a VOD back, your eyes need to be glued to the top left of the screen, looking at the blue on your radar and trying to synchronize to them. Don't ever expect them to recognize what you're doing. You have to play off them. And if that means baiting them, that's what you build into. You build into making the best opportunity to 1v3 if it has to be done.
Nice. That makes a whole lot of sense. What's a build that you love that just doesn't work in solo matchmaking, and why do you think that is?
Weave Walk and Unbreakable and pretty much anything like that that lets you take aggro of 3 players at once and live. And you would think with the sound cues of bullets shooting pretty much an entire magazine that your teammates would do anything. You are Moses figuratively parting the Red Sea with a Beyblade, and for whatever reason, your teammates are too inexperienced to follow up on that, or to pick up the power ammo, or recognize what the highest priority is. It can be especially frustrating in high-level comp, but that's why I don't run Weave Walk or Unbreakable. They broke my heart too many times.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I've had very many similar experiences where I go in, I kill 2 as an aggressive player, and then my teammates just sit back. They just don't notice the kill feed, the up top, the red skulls. So I understand that pain point exactly. When you're putting together a loadout or subclass combo, How do you think about that balance between raw carry potential and team synergy?
It depends on the skill of the opponent's team. When you play against the best in the world, consistency usually beats explosiveness. However, if you have the right supporting teammates, snowballing could be the best strategy, and as you know in arena shooters, snowballs can be very fast. Game can be over, the score can be, 50-10, and that looks like a blowout, but in reality, the other team could have done that to us if they got the snowball first. It's just the nature of the game.
I agree completely. I think often when you look at a results screen, I think the game is closer than it appears a lot of the time, especially in an arena shooter.
Which is why the mercy
Do you feel
rule
like-
kind of irritates me in some regard.
Oh, I feel that.
I feel like we had a chance. The game ended.
There's times that I've got the reverse snowball in collision, and I feel like sometimes there needs to be a little bit more time, and we'll lose like 87-95 because we just didn't have enough time to get the capture points.
Valid.
Do you feel like Destiny 2 actually supports high-level team strategy in public lobbies, or is it too inconsistent?
I think inconsistent is the wrong word here. Inexperienced is what I think about. If somebody's complaining about team shooting, that tells me everything. We're playing an arena FPS shooter with a team. The problem is the player doesn't really have answers to lobbying or hand-holding, which usually requires some combination of dexterity, game knowledge, or team coordination to deal with. In general, setting up crossfires will always beat hand-holding. You gotta think of it like a pack of hyenas nipping at the heels. It takes a little bit, even for a mouse and keyboard player, to snap between angles. You should always be shooting them in the back, and if you do that perfectly and try to time your grenades perfectly, the hand-holding always loses.
No, I agree completely. Often what I tell people is like actionable damage or damage can win fights. You don't necessarily have to be greedy for the kill. Say there's two players holding an angle on you. You make one of them low, they're going to back up to recover. So now you have a 1v1. But a lot of players will just rush that 1v2 and
Other thing is,
that they got gunned down.
Radar and invis, like if you know somebody is deathballing, then you know that the single radar ping is likely the whole team. You don't actually have to get curious about that. There's a lot of third-person mechanics in the game that I don't agree with, but you could use one there. But experience will tell you it is 4 players. So you shouldn't be thinking about getting curious when you already know it's 4 players. You should be thinking of using invis or some very fast movement to create that crossfire, and then it's on your teammates to follow up, which is why I don't think it works in general. You need someone on comms, you need an experienced player, because if you have 1 or 2 inexperienced players on your team, it's going to crumble and they're going to resort to deathballing.
Agreed completely.
I want to add one more thing here. I get really frustrated in Control or Iron Banner because sometimes I do get the 5 inexperienced players who think deathballing is the answer, and they'll roam in a pack, but they'll only capture 1 zone while the enemy captures 2, and it's just a perpetual loop, and they don't understand that they're the problem. They don't know any better.
Yeah, I agree completely. There's times I'm frustrated with, say, real quickly, Endless Veil. A lot of times you just want to hold B and not like constantly flip spawns by going back and forth. And if you just hold B, they always spawn on one side, your team always spawns on the other, and it's a very methodical game loop, at least in 6s.
Next high percent play, this is on the same level that you're talking about with holding B. B sometimes leads to power ammo, and I see the entire team of 5 players run away from power to get a double cap. The enemy team grabs the power, wipes us, and then gets a triple cap. It's always how it happens, and I'm just surprised when there's supposed skill-based matchmaking or rank-based matchmaking in the game, how it just keeps happening.
Yeah. I see that all the time too, or like, you get a kill or 2 in like survival or trials or things like that, and then your teammates, instead of supporting the 2v1, will go grab special, even though you're in the middle of a fight.
That's a video I've had on my notepad for a while, like the 7 deadly sins of public matchmaking. That's one of them. That's greed. The Green Goblin.
Oh yeah, I agree completely. I'm just like, why are you grabbing special right now? Now, if you could wave a wand and change just one thing about solo play at high skill tiers, what would it be?
It's an unfair answer because I'm thinking more like Destiny 3. I don't think what I'm going to say is possible in Destiny 2. But a proper rank and queuing system where you can do something like just play Control or Rumble or a Battleground or something, then a pop-up hits your screen, you have 5 minutes to make it to your match, and then you show up. I feel like that's much better than the Mongoose error code and sitting in orbit and getting cold.
Oh, that's such a good idea. I don't cover this game, but I play a lot of Overwatch, and I've reached top 500 in that game, and the queue times for a tank are so long, and it's so nice that they have firing range or bots or mini games you can do while you're waiting that 15-20 minute queue.
Like it's
That would
nice
be
that
huge.
it's nice that you can occupy yourself, but what I really want to prevent is having the gold player in the maximum ascendant lobbies because it's just unfair to the other 5 players that have to accommodate it. It's a foregone conclusion. Everybody already knows the fate of the match.
That's a big part of why when Halo, the newest one, came out, wasn't my biggest fan, because not everyone at the highest rank is built differently, and I would usually get 2 diamonds on my team against 3 Onyx players. And it was just basically I'm trying to outkill their feeding. And it's not their fault. They shouldn't have been in that lobby. But that's just what happened. One thing that I'm very passionate about is something I call the 6 stages of player development. We've been building that in our mentorship program. It's a framework. It's not a perfect science, but it helps players figure out where they are and what to work on next. It starts with foundational learning, where players are just trying to get their settings right, learn the maps, and understand the basics of movement and aiming. Then they move into objective recognition. That's where they stop playing just for kills and start realizing how games are actually won. Playstyle discovery comes next, where they experiment a lot and try to figure out what kind of player they want to be. Whether that's an aggressive duelist, a support role, or a more methodical zone controller. Stage 4 is identity formation. That's when someone really locks into their playstyle, gets consistent, and starts thinking deeply about their impact on the match. After that, they enter the game sense and mastery phase, where they are reading rotations, controlling space, influencing fights before they even happen. And finally, we have the specialist tier, players who can execute under pressure, teach others, and play with precision and purpose across multiple roles. Not to get too scientific about it, but it's kind of like the Dunning-Kruger effect, which often is just an experiment that proves or disproves that people don't really have an understanding of their expertise, or they have an overestimation or an underestimation. And a big part of that processing is learning how much there is to learn. And that's where the Dunning-Kruger effect kicks in. At the beginning, people often overestimate themselves. They feel confident, but they don't know what they don't know. Then as they get better, their awareness expands and their confidence dips. They start to see how deep the game really is and how much more there is to improve. I've always thought that moment where your confidence drops because your awareness is growing is actually a good sign. That's where growth happens. Cammy, have you noticed that pattern in your own journey or with players you've coached, given advice to? And how do you think it affects long-term improvement?
In general, I think this applies to everyone, myself included. The word is accountability. I would like everybody to learn to watch VODs and take accountability for quickly finding a high percent play faster than opponents. And a good way to hold yourself accountable is self-live commentary. You can't argue with yourself if you're watching the VOD back and you're like, I think there's only one person to the right. Then you slide it and there's 3. That's on you. You made a wrong read.
No matter your skill level, everyone makes mistakes like that, and you gotta just be accountable about it. Like, some people read it as beating yourself up, but no, I don't have any negative or malice towards myself. I'm like, that was just a bad play.
I'm sure we'll get more into that as we continue here.
So, back into the stages. Let's dig into those stages a bit more, starting with foundational learning. Do you remember your own early stage and what helped you improve the most back then?
So I was just a generic player. I played Destiny because it kind of had similarities to Halo, Phantasy Star, a little bit of RuneScape baked in there. And I never knew what to expect with the game. Like, I thought soloing a Nightfall would give me better gear, so I learned to solo a Nightfall. I did raids because I wanted to get better gear to use in PvP, and so One time I was playing with these Irish college students, and you could hear like the bong bubbling in the mic and shit. It was like really casual. But we loaded into PvP in sixes, and they just keep hearing the kill sound, and they're like, "What are you, the Terminator or something?" I remember them saying that. I didn't know I was good at PvP. Then I started seeking out better players, Halo mutuals, I guess you could call them. They put me under their wing, and we started playing not organized sixes, but we would grab a fire team of six, and then we'd play against a good fire team of six. So when you play with and against better players, it's really easy to recognize what you could do better to win. But as far as my personal dexterity, I camped in the Rumble playlist with a snipe only. I just sniped. Non-stop.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Like a little bit, like real quick. I started off as like a 0.5 in this game because I was kind of used to like the rules of Halo, where it's just like who strafes first, who hits shots first. I wasn't used to all the abilities and things like that. I later learned and grew to love them, but I learned a lot along my path from much better players than myself, including players like Dead Dream. There's so many people I learned from, and I definitely agree with what you're saying there. When did you notice yourself starting to play for the objective and not just taking fights?
As soon as I started playing 6 versus 6 pre-mades in scrim environments and whatnot, you want to play to win. If you want to, get better dexterity, there's the Rumble playlist. People seem to be more invested in getting the number 1 spot on the DTR leaderboards. So, I mean, it's still an intense environment, even if you are farming some noobs, because you're out farming someone else. So.
Oh, agreed. As somebody that's reached top 500 in Rumble, it was usually just, you get Elo for first or second place, and it's usually just the two best players have this mutual understanding that they're just going to farm the rest of the players in Rumble. Sometimes they'll cross path, but a lot of times they just stay on one side of the map because the spawns are so
that's what I'm saying, though. Is just like, if you want to test yourself in fights, just go to Rumble. You get more reps per hour. If you're in scrims or a pre-made, it's better to play to win.
Yeah, that makes sense. During that discovery phase, how important do you think it is to experiment versus chasing what's meta?
I think this was a weird one where I kind of wanted to go a different direction with the question. I'm going to say that experimenting is part of meta development. So you can net deck, which just means you copy what works for others, or you can try to understand why people use what they use and try to make something better that, if you're correct, they'll later conform to. For example, I'll just make a prediction here. I'm really valuing Radar Booster, and I think later it will be a high pick rate for at least one player on a organized team of 3.
That makes perfect sense. A build that I've come up with that I kind of got inspiration from you and a couple other people is I started playing with Bold Endings, which is like a awful archetype, but if you run that with Horfrust and Collective Action, you can 2 burst from neutral, and a lot of people are running pulses, so they're just not expecting you to have a faster pulse. That's the way I think of those hand cannons. They're just like a bad pulse. I've beaten players like Buoyancy, Walla, things like that, where it's just because of surprise. The weapon isn't necessarily good. You get your free win,
but then they're like, that's a shit hand cannon, I'm going to fly at them next time or something.
Yeah, exactly. And I was running it because I just know, 1, people are going to look at it, not expect anything. And then 2, they're challenging with a pulse out in the open, so I can just get that 2 burst.
Yeah, it might also be they just don't know they have to respect the fast time to kill. And once they recognize that, they just play tighter and it's over. Or, like I said, it's just fly at you. Because it's hard to get those the tracking on a weapon that is tracking.
And luckily, in a game mode like Trials, it's very unlikely that I'll match them again. I've had very good
that's the worst thing in this game in general. I want the rematch. It won't give it to me. Even the win rematch.
I've noticed I'll have a really good I had a weekend where I had a 3.0 across 100 matches, but it was almost 100 unique opponents. Once I started coming across people that have played it before, I started getting dumpstered because it's a bad weapon, but they just weren't expecting the build.
So I want to add an asterisk to this question here, which is also, the game doesn't really scale well to high level play, so I'm mostly a solo player now. But that doesn't mean my brain isn't like running an overdrive for trying to learn how to play threes better while I'm solo. There's such subtle things. Like I was talking about with radar booster mod or like crouching at the right time. There's subtle ways that you can communicate something without actually saying it. It could just be practice with the teammate where I tell them, as soon as you see red on the radar, I want you to walk backwards, which tells me that you see red on the radar without you saying anything. Something like that.
That's fair. I mean, a lot of things I've also learned in scrims is like if the first person to a corner should play the corner closer so the person behind can
hold the crouch so they can shoot over you too.
Or crouch too. So like, and you know how I learned that? When I was real young and learning, I had somebody shout at me, "Crouch!" But you know what? It made sense. And now that I do that because I had some Irish guy, funnily enough, yell at me in his thick accent, "Crouch."
Don't strafe in the Willow Radiance.
Yeah, or put a big barricade. The Titans like to do that as well. What signs do you think show a player is starting to form their true identity in the Crucible?
So maybe in my earlier Destiny hours, I'd have thought in terms of identity, but now I don't. If anything, I'd say I think in terms of proximity. You need to be comfortable doing it all. That means putting on a build that plays to the map, the mode, the opponent's team comp, while also doing the task that needs doing based on, like I said, proximity, economy, who has the cooldowns, and aggro. You can hear it on a Guardian Theater VOD where they're saying, like, that's the good player, focus him down. That means you have aggro, and you can do something with that. That lets your teammates get flanks and whatnot because they're so hyper-focused on one player.
No, that makes perfect sense. I watch a lot of Guardian Theater, and people call out my glaive all the time because it keeps them from sniping or using their slugs, and I just know that I play into that. Like, I don't play too aggressive to end up feeding, but I know that I'll purposely try to get more aggro or, try to get them in closer just because I know that they're upset with the glaive. Where do people usually get stuck when trying to develop their game sense to the best of your knowledge?
They don't obsess. They don't obsess over that one time that they got. In my opinion, that should stay with them the whole day, when they sleep, whatever. Eventually, they'll deconstruct that moment after replaying it enough in their head, and then might have a good answer for it. I think players hinder their progress by brushing off bad plays as goof moments, instead of just looking at it as bad plays. If they did look at it as a bad play, they would probably be more motivated to find an answer to avoid that situation entirely.
No, I agree. I agree completely. There's a play that I think about, and it changes how I use my Behemoth Super. Like I said, I used to do Rumble and went to top 500. I ran into a player that's kind of notorious, Menstrual, a lot. The Cryosthesia King.
Of course.
Not really playing anymore. But I popped my super across a gap, and he hit me with a freeze round. I did not realize that you can't break out of ice unless you touch the ground. So I just fell to my death. That was a year and a half ago, and I still think about that. And when I see people pop their supers,
well, you talk about specialists. Like that is a specialist. He would know that off the top of his head.
And I tell people, like, do not pop your super across gaps, because I obsess about like mess ups like that I'm like, I should have known that. I'm a behemoth. I have freeze in my kit. Why didn't I know that? And I've learned a lot just playing against him. I haven't talked to him that much, but like those little things I'd see him do, I was like, ooh, I need to change that about my play style or my decision making or my timing. So yeah, that makes perfect sense to me, because that was a year and a half ago, and I think about that.
Being in the scrim environment, there's a slightly different rule set, but the lesson learned applies to vanilla, and it's with the Golden Gun super. There are some players that are so good they will disrespect your super, and that's just something you have to accept. And so the answer could be just be better, just be more dexterity, just flick to more opponents, and just gun them anyway. That's a bad play. The correct play is I was on Gemini's anyway. Gemini during the pop animation. It creates a 50-50, which gives you that buffer to not have to be an aim god. Very, very simple answer, right? But the reason you get there is because one too many players gotcha. They killed you in super, which shouldn't happen, but it does.
No, I agree, and I think there's also, it's the same side, but kind of like the flipped perspective is of people like not respecting things that they don't see. Like I'll get like people be like, oh, and the guy was running Geminis, and I'm like, Geminis is an incredibly good team, like exotic if used correctly. So that to me just shows that you haven't fought a good Gemini user, because they can just ruin matches. I've been rolled by some people just running that exotic and just having well-timed pushes with their teams. And what, in your view, defines that final shift from an experienced player to a true specialist? I know you touched on that briefly earlier.
I think they're only a specialist until the player base gets good enough to where their game plan unravels. They pretty much have to do that entire process again that made them a specialist in the first place, or they build a proper team around them so that they don't have to, on an individual level, do rock, paper, scissors. Specialists understand that they bring high value to specific team compositions. It's unrealistic to expect perfect pivots from all the team members. And what I mean by a pivot is like you see the Eternity map coming up, your Voidwalker now changes to a Dawnblade and has a Scout. Like, they can do that, but it's really unrealistic to expect that every player has a pivot for every map and situation. Like, for example, I like using Blink on Endless Veil to get into the Cubbies without dying to a snipe. But it's unrealistic to ask that of a pickup team. Like, hey, throw on Blink. They're like, what do you mean? I don't run Blink. I don't even have it bought from Ikora.
No, that makes perfect sense. Just like, as many people know, I'm a Peacekeeper main, and I know that I need to create space and hold space, and it's not always... It's not reasonable of me to expect my teammates to push up just because I pushed up. So there's a lot of times I will hold space, wait for my opportunity, wait for them to get me in, and even with just random pickup teams, that doesn't happen. And if I want to carry that game and win, it's either up to me to just out dexterity the enemy team or swap to something that makes more sense to them.
Best part is if you flip the role, like if you run a standard hand cannon shoddy or a pulse or something in solo queue, and you notice you have like a Drang teammate or a Rat King teammate, you understand what it means to get them in, and you'll probably take 2 or 3 reps trying it to see if they can hang. And if you get them in and they just fail every time, you're probably just going to go to solo carry mode. But the point is, you know what to do.
Yeah, exactly. What's more common for me anyways, besides seeing like Drang or something, is Last Word. Where I think Last Word has this weird balance where it's kind of an okay weapon until it gets in, and then it's like probably the strongest primary in the game. And so I know it's a similar playstyle to my Peacekeepers. So whenever I see like a Last Word on my team, and I'm not running Peacekeepers, I do my best to get them in. And often, when I'm lucky, I'll just see him get like a double or triple kill just in the kill feed. And so I think that point definitely rings true about being a specialist. Now, I'd like to talk mentorship for a second. Specifically, mentorship you've received. What's the most helpful piece of advice or feedback you've ever gotten in PvP specifically?
I can't be specific on it because it's generic, but one day it clicked. And the answer is just seeing comments and other people just saying it. Skill issue. All it is just taking accountability. It really is a skill issue a lot of the time. Granted, if you're on PC, yes, there's Nostradamus and there's Harry Potter flying around. That's not what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it's hard to outskill that. Although, if it's just aimbot, glaives block crits, so if they don't have infinite ammo, I have beaten them, but the ones flying around like they're Goku instant transmissioning, good luck. The best feedback I ever got was a player called Pistola Pete. He was probably one of the best Halo players ever. He was in the professional circuit. And I used to have this mindset to strafe to make my opponents miss. And he told me specifically, strafe to hit my opponents and strafe to the RPM of the weapon that I'm using. So while that does make sense on a fundamental level, having never thought about it that way, it changed how I strafe and how I play the game fundamentally for years.
I definitely do a little bit of that too, but it really just depends on the opponent. as far as the amount of reps I get with them in the game. I think of it like fighting game perspective, where I want to be changing up what they think I'm changing up, but a layer above that. Sometimes
Yeah,
it means standing still, as silly as that sounds.
exactly. I play with a really, really good Invis hunter named Regicide, and he has caught some of the best and most notorious players just by going invisible and standing still, and they're expecting him at a corner or a slide, and they just fly around the corner, and he just shotguns them. Like some of the best players I've seen in the game, and he'll just throw them off just by doing the unexpected. Like he doesn't do the same thing every time.
Some lower skill players get tunnel visioned and peak shotting. Like they finally have the dexterity to use a hand cannon, and so they're making love to the wall, but they're doing it at the maximum RPM, which is predictable, right? So a high skill player is like, you're an idiot. They'll tap them once, they'll do a short hop, tap them again, and then they'll just fly at them because they know they're weak and they haven't landed a shot yet. And that other player's like, damn, what did I do wrong? It's like, well, 4 times in a row you did max RPM jiggle peak. Of course they knew what you were doing. Whereas when I'm on controller, I don't have the dexterity to answer that easy strategy they're doing. So I kind of just concede. I just say I lost that angle. We're going to find a new answer.
Yep, I say that all the time as a peacekeeper Titan. I go, I don't have that's not my angle, or that's not my duel, and I'll just reposition. Live to fight another fight. What do you think makes a bad mentor or just bad advice for PvP in Destiny 2?
The advice needs to be proper for the player, for their skill level. There's a term in education that I referenced before called zone of proximal development. The coach has to recognize where the player is at to Goldilocks zone that feedback. Too little, they don't stress, they don't learn, but too much, they shut down and don't have any takeaways.
Oh, I agree completely. Like if I'm doing a live mentorship of somebody and I'm watching them, and if I notice like one mistake, I'm not going to nitpick every mistake, right? But if they do like the same thing 6 or 7 times, I might point it out. I also try to have realistic goals for them. If you're just starting in the game and you're brand new and you're trying to do the movement text, you see someone like Walla do or Dame do or things like that, that's probably just not in your wheelhouse right now. You need to work on the fundamentals. So I definitely agree that advice needs to be tailored to the player, their desired play style, and their desired or their current skill level, rather.
I don't want to encourage people to seek out a toxic environment, but sometimes abrasiveness is what a person needs for advice to stick. Sometimes that means being in a scrim environment where you're used to being the big fish, but now you're the little fish, and having people mad at you for not doing what should be simple. Because the little things matter when everybody's good.
I couldn't agree more. Like, I did scrims with Drewski and Wormy and Nervous and Lunars, some of the people I think are some of the best players in the game. And I know where I sit, but I knew that I was the worst player in that lobby, and I learned so much in that 5-hour period. And there was definitely, like, they weren't rude, but they were definitely, like, impatient sometimes of my decision making way back when, or my timing. And I had to learn that, and I think it exponentially made me a better player playing in that environment as opposed to just hurting my ego.
You have a practice mindset, but sometimes we run across high dexterity players that are hard-headed, and it really does take a renowned player in the community with some sort of backing to say, stop fucking peeking things solo. Like, stop. And then as they do it again, it gets louder and more abrasive, and the third time they do it, it's probably like, it really sticks with them. They pissed off everybody in the lobby.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that's kind of akin to, it depends on the players. Like some people, like you said, I'm kind of practiced. Like you tell me something once, I usually have it down. But then I've definitely coached people where I have to tell them 5, 8, 9, 10 times. But it ends up, you see the development of the player. And I think
it's hard-headedness and a little bit of might is right. Now, I'm not going to say I can, like, smoke these teams anymore, but there was a time where I was really practiced where I could walk my walk, right? So if it was a hard-headed player and I'm saying, like, you are making a shit play, this is why I think it's a shit play, they won't change it until I get a strong team of 3 and beat them down a couple games in a row. Then they're like, okay, maybe he was right. So sometimes you have to, like, seek out a scrim lobby or snipe people in trials or something like that for you to realize what is actually a mistake.
I've had moments like that where people doubt where I've had a mentee doubt my advice or tell me I don't know what I'm talking about with SMGs, and then the stars align and they match me 3 times in a row in comp. And then they come back asking for another session because they lost all 3 matches. So it is interesting that some of those people need to have it beaten into them.
I will say, though, I'm not a perfect player. I have some personal demons out there that I don't think I've ever won a game off of, but they would tell you in their own words that they think I'm a really good player. Just because they beat me 100% of the time doesn't mean I don't also like rock, paper, scissors, a player that beats them all the time. It happens. There's different archetypes of players.
Exactly. I could say that with certainty. I don't know if you've heard of Zane. He doesn't really do...
Zane, bow controller player. Yeah, I've heard of him.
Yeah. He does mostly M&K now, but he is I think one of the best players in Cardinal Dive. He's very, very good. I have never beaten him in a 1v1. Some of our 1v1s are close, like 2017. Sometimes he blows me out of the water. But anytime he talks about me in public, he's always like, Sai is one of the best players I know. Whenever there's anyone up close, he protects my butt, or he'll say having to track my little slides because they're kind of jank looking and hurts his eyes or whatever. So I definitely could understand that. I know some demons too that I can't personally beat, but they have a lot of respect for me and my different archetype of player. In your opinion, how could the mentorship work better in Destiny and the community at large?
I don't really do mentorship because I'm a content creator. It's more valuable to viewers to get broad ideas from videos where thousands of players can benefit at once. I think a video I'm proud of was the low skill Trials of Osiris guide.
Yes, I watched it.
So I could take any of those low skill players and mentor them up, and it would take a very long time. Or I can make a broad strokes video where they can get the gist of it and work through the growing pains on their own to become a intermediate player. Then I can really take an intermediate player and accelerate them way faster than I could take a beginner player.
Agreed completely. I think the foundational steps and some of those things take the longest. I think it's much easier to make an intermediate player an excellent player, and then there's elite, and then true gamers is how I rank it. But I definitely think it's easier, that gap between intermediate and to good or excellent.
The next thing is until you meet intermediate and low skill players, some high skill bubbles never go outside of the high skill bubble. You don't know how much you actually know about the game, just inherently. So sometimes when I'm coaching somebody, I have to limit test concepts myself because it would take too long to explain it and practice them up to get the answer for them. Controller AE, if they ask me the question hey Cam, how much AE should I build into? I have to actually try that myself before I can make a recommendation. Because I played mostly M&K at a certain point.
No, that makes sense. I play both inputs, but mostly controller, and sometimes when I get M&K questions, I will be like, hey, let me get back to you, and I'll go practice that concept for a few days and then try to give them an educated answer. I'm more than comfortable saying I don't know right now, but I can help you or get that answer to you later.
So whatever they find fun, I sort of have to knock the rust off that play style, test it, and then downsize it into some bite-sized learnable chunks for the lesser skill player. That way they can quickly work up to where I'm at. Not as an overall player, but that specific build. There are some builds in the game that are kind of junk food, but they get results, so why not just use them until it doesn't work?
Yeah, I would a loadout I would say is Peregrine Titan. It works majority of levels, but then there's a certain level where it just stops working unless you're very, very creative with it. Most players of my skill level or higher kind of just see a Titan running at you at a straight line and they just slug them or just easily just team fire them.
Agreed. So I haven't offered coaching yet, but when I do, it's probably not going to be taking basic new players, unless of course they have an FPS background in another game. Then I know that process would be quick. I really want to teach them the foundation of VOD reviewing, And then from there, it should be kind of like an upward path on their own. Then I'd only want them to reach out for a coaching session when they're truly stumped.
Yeah, when they're trying to get from like one gap to another.
When they hit a major plateau where VOD reviewing doesn't do it anymore.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That's eventually where I want to be too. I mean, eventually I'd love to do this full time, and I definitely prefer helping intermediate players and higher. But the program I'm building is trying to make it so the foundational stuff is easier. You kind of work on your own, and then you come to us for more specialized lessons. That was incredible, Cammy. Thank you again for making time and sharing your insight. It means a lot. Any final words or advice for the players or creators trying to find their way?
For creators, the YouTube game can be unforgiving. Learning to work the algorithm is just as much a skill as your in-game prowess or your video editing, making presentation. So if you're not finding success, it's unfortunate, but that's the game we play. It's a lot of luck, but it's also recognizing patterns.
Well, I appreciate you being here. Did you want to do a sign-off where you plug your channels or let people know? I doubt there's very many people that are going to come across this video who don't already know who you are, but for those that don't know, would you like to plug your stuff and just let them know a little bit about you before you sign off?
I'll just, I guess I'll introduce my stream. I make YouTube content mostly, but when I stream, I'm just kind of enjoying myself. It's just there to say thank you for watching my content. So don't expect me to like dance and make content for you on the fly as a streamer. I'm literally there just to say thank you. And so if I have a bare bones stream and it doesn't meet your like standard of quality, that's fine. I wasn't trying.
What I will say is he still has more views than most people on that. There's a lot of people out there that really enjoy your streams and your thank you, even if it is bare bones.
The bare bones thing is like being the color gray in a sea of rainbows it really does stand out. Wait, why did that guy go the default stream strategy? Thanks again for having me. Glad I could get this done.
If you're watching this and you're serious about improving, we'd love to have you in the Action Is Eloquence community or my own community, The Pond. Whether you're brand new or already pushing top 1%, we're building a space where growth is intentional and shared.